Welcome back to the Storycraft Society, and in this week's episode, we're going to be crafting hills from the Goblin Arrows Ambush set into your story. I'm Garmin, and welcome back to the channel, everyone, for the exciting conclusion of our Goblin Arrows Ambush series from Lost Mines of Phandelver. If you missed part 1, where we worked on rocks, part 2, where we made fallen logs, or part 3, where we made bushes, all those videos will be linked in the video description below. But today we're talking about the big guns. We're talking about the focal piece of this entire encounter that are definitely going to wow your players when they hit the tables. These awesome hills here. So I'm excited, you're excited, let's get crafting.
Our materials list for this build is going to be XPS insulation foam. We're going to need Black Magic Craft base coat, so that's going to be matte Mod Podge and black paint mixed together 50-50. We're going to need white glue, whether that's Eileen's Tacky Glue or Elmer's Glue. Various craft paints, all of them in brown. We're going to need a spray bottle. Now I bought this one at Walmart for like 99 cents. Then we're going to need various different flocks. I'm using Woodland Scenics, but you can use any kind that you'd like. Isopropyl alcohol. We're going to need a tinfoil ball for texturing our foam later. Various different paint brushes. We're definitely going to need sandpaper for sanding some of our foam down. And then the last thing that we're going to need is a box cutter or an Olfa knife, something like that, to cut our foam. So here we are, and what I'm just going to do is start drawing out the shape of the hill that I want. This could look like a pretty intimidating task, but honestly, I'm just kind of envisioning an idea in my head and quickly sketching out what I want it to look like before I cut it. Now, here you see me cutting the foam with a Proxxon hot wire table, and you'll notice that I didn't list that as one of the tools you'd need in the materials list. And the main reason for that is these tables are kind of expensive, and you don't really need it as a tool. This is something that I use because it saves me a little bit of time, but it's easily something that you can accomplish with a Olfa knife or box cutter. You just need to take your time, go nice and slow, and use a sharp blade. Again, same thing with this tool. I'm going to use it in a way to save me a little bit of time, but if you were using a box cutter or an Olfa knife, you could be making these same kind of cuts, maybe just taking slightly thinner layers off and just slowly whittling the shape of your hill down. And speaking of whittling your hill down, that's exactly what I'm doing. So for this encounter, we're definitely going to want one side of our hill to be sticking up a little bit. I'm going to use just the thickness of the foam to determine that amount. And then all I'm doing for the rest of it is just slowly cutting away slivers of foam so that I get a nice organic hill shape that slowly tapers up to a flat top where I can have all my goblins hiding out to attack those pesky adventurers. And don't stress about the shape here too much, because the two hills that I ended up with at the end of this build are very different, and that's what makes them cool. And you'll see that this is what it should look like once you get the basic hill shape all carved out of your foam. Now the next step is going to be sanding, so I made sure to take it outside so I didn't get the sanded foam particles all over the house. But you want to go and take the sandpaper around and just knock all of the hard edges off of the foam. That's going to make it more look like rolling hills and less like, sharp, unnatural edges. And then once it's sanded, this is what it should look like. So now break out that tinfoil ball, and just like we textured our rocks in the first video, we're going to texture the hill. That way it looks more like dirt and less like smooth, flat surfaces. But 100% of the visible surface area of this foam you're going to want to take and get it looking nice and textured like that. So with the basic shape of our hill done, we are moving on to paint. So we're going to start with our base coat, which is the Black Magic Craft base coat, which is just a 50-50 mixture of matte Mod Podge and black paint. And we're going to cover the whole thing. All right, so once we have that all base coated, it'll look like this. You're gonna wanna let it dry, and then we're moving on to color. So the first color we're going to use is a dark brown. You'll see that I water it down just to thin the paint down. The consistency really doesn't matter, but then I'm going to use it to cover the entire piece. Next, we're going to use a medium brown, but you're going to watch that I take and put it onto a paper towel and then take some of the paint off of the brush so that I can just lightly drag the brush over the top surfaces and it starts to pull out some of that cool detail that we got from sanding and cutting our foam. So now we're going to pull out a honey brown and do the exact same thing we did with our medium brown. We're going to take most of the paint off of our brush, just drag that over the surface of the hill to bring out all that cool texture we got with our tinfoil ball, and make it really start to come alive now as a dirt hill. All right, and lastly, we're going to pull out a tan, and then we're going to take most of the paint off of our brush, but this time, instead of brushing all over, we're just going to make downstrokes so that it looks like the sun is highlighting different parts of our hill. And the trick with this step is less is definitely more, but when you're done, you should end up with something that looks like this. All right, so here I'm putting down a piece of foam core. I do that to protect my craft mat because the next step is going to get kind of messy. So we're going to want to take some Elmer's glue and mix it down 7-3 glue to water, and then we're going to start painting that all over our hill where we want our grass to be. We want to avoid the cliff faces and the steep areas, and we definitely want to get glue on any flat areas or slightly slanted areas. Then I'm going to take a medium green. The one I'm using is Blended Turf by Woodland Scenics. It's honestly my favorite flock ever, and it's definitely the best, in my opinion, medium green out there. And then I'm going to start spreading it all over the piece where there's glue. The trick to this is you don't want too smooth of an application. You want there to be some raised up bumps and some thinner areas. That way it looks the most natural. If your application ends up looking too smooth, what ends up happening is you get a very manicured lawn kind of a look, instead of a hill that's out in the wilderness for adventurers to fight monsters on. So now we're going to take isopropyl alcohol and we're going to put it into our spray bottle. Like I said in the materials list, this is a spray bottle that I got from Walmart. I think I paid 99 cents for it. But what we're going to do is just lightly spray down the flock that we already have. Be careful not to blow it off of your hill. But once you do that, then you're going to move on to your brighter green. This one I'm using Fine Turf by Woodland Scenics. And now what you're going to do is do a thinner application than you did for your medium green. But you want some clumped up areas and some thin areas. The goal is just to have a decent amount of your original green showing through this layer. So when we're done that, we're going to want to move on to a coarse green by Scenic Express. And then this is just going to be our scrub brush. So very little application here. It's just all over. We're going to go little places and make little kind of scrub weed looking bushes. Then we're going to hit it with our isopropyl alcohol again. And now we're going to make a super watered down glue mixture. So I'm going to say this is maybe 3 parts white glue to 7 parts water. And then we're going to start to spray it down. Now, here's the trick. You see how it's soaking down into the flock. That's why we sprayed it down with our isopropyl alcohol. It allows all of that glue to make its way down into the flock and really lock it down so it's nice and durable for years of gaming. And don't be afraid to saturate it when you put your glue on, because the more you saturate it, the longer it'll take to dry, but the more durable the piece will be once you're finished. So I'm gonna go above and beyond and go one more step here. So I'm gonna take some clump foliage that I got from Michael's, and then I'm gonna take Eileen's tacky glue. While the flock is still damp with glue from the previous step, I'm gonna put a couple of dots of Eileen's tacky glue. I'm gonna ball the clump foliage up like this, and then I'm gonna stick it down into the glue. This is gonna make cool little bushes that just are kind of always on our piece. And you absolutely would not have to do this to your piece unless you wanted to. I just want to show you everything that's possible. So again, we're going to take our isopropyl alcohol and soak our bushes with that. Then we're going to take our watered down PVA mixture and saturate each one of those with that. And actually, I will do that sometimes through the drying process 2 or 3 times just to make sure that they dry as rock hard as possible once the whole thing is finished. And probably 24 hours once it dries, then you're going to be left with a hill that looks something like this. We're done.
We made our rocks, we made our logs, we made our bushes, and finally we made our hills. It is time to see what our set looks like. Let's see some glamour shots. So there it is. Thank you to everybody who's crafted along with me and watched these videos. I really appreciate the support, but more importantly, I hope you get years and years of stories out of these pieces. But we're not stopping there. Next week, we're starting the Cragmaw Hideout series from Lost Mines of Phandelver. Hey, what's up, everybody? So Past Garmin didn't actually know this, but next week is not going to be the start of the Cragmaw Hideout series. Actually, next week is going to be me going over a custom one-shot adventure that I wrote for these pieces that I'm going to actually be going through with you to show you that you can use them as part of Goblin Arrows Ambush, but also as a totally separate adventure. So that's going to be next week, and then in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing the start of the Cragmaw Hideout series. All right, back to Past Garmin. So I'm really excited about that. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, leave a like and a comment down below, turn on the notification bell if you want to know when we release videos every week. And I mean, I can't believe the series is over. It's done. What a journey. But I'm excited about Cragmaw Hideout. So we're gonna get to that. I will see y'all next week.